you would have a really good team.
Yeah, the only way I'm getting rid of Irving is if Towns is coming back. That's stupid. There's no reason to lose a guy like Kyrie Irving. He is one of the best players in the league. Celtics are not dumb. They're going to do whatever they can to keep him. And probably at the end of the day, even if Butler does go to the Clippers, to the Knicks, or the Nets, I still think Kyrie Irving ends up standing in Boston. I mean, there's just too good of a situation then for him to walk on. But it's just a little bit more scary for the Celtics in this situation.
Yeah.
Now, I brought up the Sixers and the Lakers as well, and they're in similar positions next offseason. They both have they both essentially have enough room in the next offseason to sign probably one max contract each and maybe a couple $1 million more. Now, with this report that Butler would prefer not to go play for the Lakers behind LeBron James, the same situation was with Kawhi Leonard earlier, and these players seem legitimately interested in going to play for the Clippers, going to play for the Nets, going to play for the Knicks. I don't understand it, but this is what they seem to want to do. They really want to be the man when it comes to being on their team. They don't want to play behind LeBron James. And as we've seen this offseason, Philadelphia did not get many chances from free agents. Now, the point I'm trying to make here is this kind of cuts Sterling short of which players they could really pursue. I mean, Klay Thompson is going to be out there, but I don't see him not resigning with the Warriors. Similar to Kevin Durant. Now, a lot of things might change before next offseason, and these two players are more likely to walk than ever, which kind of surprises me. But there's been reports coming out that, yes, that these players might be a little interested in coming to play for the Lakers or just changing teams in general. But with these players now stating they don't want to go play behind LeBron James, what do you think happens if the Lakers and Sixers aren't able to get a big name? I mean, beyond those guys, you got a player like Kemba Walker. We'll see how DeMarcus Cousins performs. Those are a couple guys they may have to pursue. Even the Lakers may have to pursue someone like DeAndre Jordan. May have to pursue someone like Tobias Harris. May have to keep KCP. Similar to the Sixers, they may have to go and look at these second and third tier free agents next year, not superstars. How do you think they would feel about having to do that? How do you think their fan bases would feel, too, about having to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in LA, just because LeBron is, getting up there in age, kind of seemed like you would want to get some players. Now I don't totally think that the Lakers would be in a very terrible position just because I like the young talent that they have. I like Lonzo. I mean, Lonzo Ball's, proven that he's a good defender and he's a good passer. He just has to work on his jump shot. Brandon Ingram, I'm really high on. So the fans would obviously be very upset, and they would be very shocked that the Lakers weren't able to pull something together. Similarly, I actually don't think Philadelphia is in a terrible position just because they are still very young. Philly's extremely young, and the truth might be that in the next couple years, Boston's going to be the obvious better team. So maybe these next few years, the goal of Philadelphia is just to improve, just to get better, and be able to dethrone Boston in the next 3 to 4 years. I do think it's interesting. I think the most interesting thing about this is what is it about LeBron James? Do you think it's people just don't want to play for him? Because the way I see it is maybe some players just saw Kyrie Irving clearly not wanting to play him and walking away. Kevin Love's productivity really dropped when playing under LeBron James. So do you think it's just they don't want to be around the control that LeBron has of the team? What do you think it is with LeBron?
I don't think it's about the control LeBron James on the team. I mean, I think LeBron James has proven that he's probably one of the best players to play alongside. However, I think how
has he proven that?
I mean, he's a great passer. He's fantastic. I mean, he opens up a lot of lanes for players. He is someone that I could see him playing alongside anyone and meshing well. Really adjusting his game to any other superstar, especially right now at this age. I think that's the point I'm trying to make here. That I could see him adjusting his game and really opening the door for another superstar to come in and take over. I think that where the problem lies in is that regardless of what LeBron James says or does or how he plays and how he adjusts his game, it's always going to be LeBron James' team based off based off the media attention he receives.
I don't know if I agree with you that he has proven that he can play with superstars. I think what we see is that he has proven that he can make a lot of okay players look good out there. I don't know if he has proven that he is able to make superstars or all-stars into better players and put them into good positions.
Well, I mean, I guess you might be right because it's not like he's had a lot to play with. I mean, Kyrie was great when he was in Cleveland, but I think he did look a lot better. Not a lot better. I mean, he looked better as a player on the Celtics and control of his own team. But I think that's also the fact that now he is hitting the prime. Like, this was his first season in his prime. He's finally about 25, 26 years old. This is about the years NBA players have their best years. So it's just, I really do believe it's the attention LeBron James receives and he's going to continue receiving. I think these players, and it's interesting to me because just a couple years ago, all these superstars were getting together. I mean, LeBron James was in the same position that a lot of these superstars will be next year. I mean, you have Butler, Leonard, Irving, Kemba Walker. All of them have the potential to team up on a team like Brooklyn, like New York, like the Clippers, like the Lakers. But same thing was the case when LeBron James was 25. He had the chance to team up with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade, and he took it. Now a lot of the players, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out, what are they trying to do? Do they want to actually go and have their own team, be in control of their own team? Or are they just planning to team up together in New York, in the Clippers, with the Clippers, in Brooklyn, with players who are around their age and with players that they might get along better and might be able to build something more united and a little bit something more consistent that will last a little longer? Which one do you think it is?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the answer to that question is, and I think it'll be interesting to see in the offseason. It will be interesting to see if Kawhi decides to stay in Toronto where he can be that guy. I mean, he can be the best player in the country. It'll be interesting to see where, what happens with Kyrie, what happens with Klay. I mean, I don't know why any sane person would leave Golden State. But like you said, there has been very little. I mean, there's been a little bit of rumbling about it. Maybe he will live. Maybe these players are bored of winning. I know that sounds ridiculous, but maybe they're like, oh, but maybe this is too easy. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I think it's what's going to make the next offseason really interesting. But I do think after the next offseason, we will see where the players are at, where their mindsets are at, and what they want to do.
Yeah, and that's what I think fascinates me the most about next year's offseason is the way these players are thinking right now. I mean, to me, going to Philadelphia, going to the Lakers seems like a no-brainer. I mean, you have perfect opportunity there to go and win and build something that will last for such a long time, especially in Philadelphia when you have Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid there. You have Sarge there, Zaire Smith. I mean, so many young players.
It really surprised me that Paul George didn't even think about it just because of how great the fit for Paul George would have been. In my opinion, is like Kawhi, Klay, and Paul George were the three perfect players to go play in Philly. And Paul George so far has been the only one we've been able to actually see. And he didn't even he didn't even talk with them. And in my opinion, the position he is in Oklahoma isn't the best. I mean, I know from what it seems like Russell Westbrook is a really good player to play with. But watching Russell Westbrook play, I wouldn't want to play with him.
Yeah, I know you've never been a big fan of Russell Westbrook, but it seems like he found something there that he really enjoyed, and he really did want to give it another go. So, and that's another point, is these players' mindsets now is they don't want to move. They don't want to always necessarily be on the move. If they find a situation that they may not love, but that they like and seems like a good situation, not a great one, they may be more willing to stay. I mean, Russell Westbrook right now is a better player than Ben Simmons. Now, Ben Simmons is definitely probably, when we talk about the same discussion 20 years from now, Ben Simmons will go down probably as an all-time great. Better above Russell Westbrook. But right now, Russell Westbrook is probably the better player in probably popular opinion and my opinion as well. And this is where Paul George is like, all right, I could see myself winning now. I want to be able to win over the next 2 to 3 years. And he may have that opportunity in Philly, he may not. But he knows if he stays in Oklahoma, they're going to compete no matter what. especially with a player like Russell Westbrook, who, even though you may have your opinions about him, is a competitor.
But last year he played with Russell Westbrook, and they weren't a team that was competitive. I mean, they lost to the Jazz.
I
don't think that's a very competitive team. I mean, I know, and I heard this all of last year. We're listening to podcasts, these people talking about, how we're so surprised that Oklahoma hasn't got to where they're point. We still believe that they're the second best team in the West. Like, bullshit. The Oklahoma Thunder we know who they are. Yes, they lost Roberson, but every team goes through injuries, okay? And the better teams are able to adjust to those injuries and keep on winning. The Oklahoma City Thunder showed me that they're not. In my opinion, if I was to see next year, it would be the same playoff series, Utah Jazz versus Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm taking Utah Jazz again.
Yeah, and this is something Paul George might end up regretting. We may see another trade request from Paul George a year from now. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? And this is what's really going to be extremely fascinating next offseason is who are going to be the players that request those trades. Will Lillard do it? Will Anthony Davis do it? There's going to be so much that happens next offseason. We thought this offseason was busy. Next offseason is going to be absolutely nuts because of the fact that now players are in control of their own futures. Regardless of what their contracts say, these players are in control more than ever of their futures and where they go and play. Now, they might not always get what they want. Like Kawhi Leonard did not get exactly what he wanted this year, but he got a majority of what he wanted. He wanted to leave San Antonio. That was his biggest thing. He wanted to leave San Antonio and go play for a winning team. Well, that's what he's going to do now. So it's hard to get into the minds of these NBA players, but that's what makes this so fun to discuss. It makes it so fun to debate.
Okay, so I think what we can talk about here is talk about some trade options that other teams will have that Jimmy Butler. They are not necessarily Boston, Philly. We haven't really touched on this, but if I'm Philly, I don't think I'm ready to make the trade for Jimmy Butler just because I don't think he would be that great of a fit. I do see him and Embiid maybe having similar issues as Cat had with Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, if I'm Philly or LA, I'm not throwing anything at Minnesota. I'm waiting until he becomes a free agent. If he wants to come, he wants to come. If not, then not. I am not risking my future for 1 year of Jimmy Butler. And these two teams, if Philadelphia wants to trade him, they'd probably have to include Saric, Fultz, both. And if the Lakers, they'd probably have to include either Deng, Lonzo, and probably Josh Hart. I'm not risking my future.
Not Deng, but you meant.
Oh, geez. Yeah, did I say Deng? I'm sorry. I meant Ingram or Ball. And they'd probably have to include at least a Josh Hart in there and maybe another first-round pick. I am not risking my future if I am those two teams to risk 1 year of Jimmy Butler, who personally, as a Lakers fan, Jimmy Butler is about number 4, number 5 on my list of players I'd prefer to come play for the Lakers next year. So he is not too high on my list.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement. His 3-point shooting isn't as high as the other players who are out there. So I don't think he's. But I do think there's some teams, especially in the Western Conference, who are kind of like Toronto, which would be a team that can kind of come out of nowhere and at least for a year take a gamble. They've been kind of stagnant for the last few years, and maybe they take a gamble on Jimmy Butler and get something out of it. And these teams do have at least an asset to offer for Jimmy Butler. So
you want to go down your list of players, and I'll let you know which ones I like, which ones I don't like, what some teams may have to add.
Okay, so I would start with my favorite option, I think, for both teams in this case, would be the Denver Nuggets. Now, the Denver Nuggets would obviously receive Jimmy Butler, and the Minnesota Timberwolves would trade Gary Harris and Michael Porter Jr., who was one of the draft picks they took this year. I will just make the case why Denver does it. Denver will do it just because this adds them a star and probably an alpha dog that they don't necessarily have. I mean, obviously they have Jokic, but Jokic is a passer. He's a team guy. I think adding a veteran like Jimmy Butler, who has shown that he can get buckets on his own, would be a great fit. They're already kind of a defensive team with Paul Millsap. So I do think that this would be a good add. I think Timberwolves do it just because you get a young Gary Harris who's a 3-and-D guy, and you take a chance on Michael Porter Jr. and see what happens there.
All right, what's your next one?
My next one was I had this is a trade for. You know what? We'll talk about this one later. I will talk about a trade to the New Orleans Pelicans where Jimmy Butler